I found in my 4 years that democracy became the most fragile, most critical infrastructure.
Or people can believe that in order to save our freedom of expression, we need more media control.
And the last session of the day is, in a way, the perfect culmination to the entire day, because here are two people who are talking about the anonymous, asymmetrical, wars that are going on across the planet, across borders, and the ammunition is data. So we were talking earlier about, our digital footprints, monetizing them, but the underbelly of that is what can happen with data and with the digital world that we are all merging into is itself a new battlefield of war. To discuss that are two fantastic speakers. First, Yigal Unna is the former cybersecurity chief of Israel. He's been part of the 8200 Secret Intelligence Unit, so really at the cutting edge of data science, data warfare, both as defense and offense. So it's a great privilege to have him here. And along with him, we have Titi Cat, who is a disinformation soldier. He runs an activist platform, a collaborative platform to fight against disinformation. Their focus is on China, but the stories we're going to hear from him could translate to any other country as well. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Yigal Unna and Titi Cat on stage. Thank you very much for being here. As I said, it's the perfect end to a day where my head is scrambled with all the ideas and the mind-bending, porous borders of everything. I'd like to start with you, Yigal. As I said, you've been at the center of this, new data era, both at the offense and defense level. So give us some insights, first into just the landscape of this and what is possibly the most startling characteristic of these new battlefields of data?
Well, thank you. As being us, the last standing before the cocktail and the evening, so we'll try to make it easier. But unfortunately...
Full of juicy stories then.
Yes.
Revealed, declassified, all the nefarious things you've been doing.
Otherwise, we need to kill everybody, so we'll keep it. So, but yes, it's a serious matter, but we'll try to lower it down to make it a little more easy. Well, I'm 53 years old, and I started my digital warrior career back when I was 17 years, 36 years ago. Back then, there was the modem that you put the socket inside. It was like nothing compared to the lowest technology here in this room. Then came the facsimile, a big thing, handwriting. Then came the internet. Then came the Internet of Things, and the cloud, and the crypto, and the blockchain, and more and more. Nothing went out. Everything is aggregated. We have piles of more and more digital. And now, you asked, so AI and quantum are the current, but I know from 36 years, it won't be the end. Everybody is excited, and truly, because of AI and the applications of AI on digital security. Quantum is much more frightening. As we see the Chinese progress in quantum technology, harvest now and decrypt later, that's the biggest fear. They collect encrypted data. You can do nothing with it. For years, RSA, one of the strongest and most popular encryption in the world, it takes 10 trillion years for the original strong computers to crack it.
10 trillion years.
And then 10 trillion years until quantum computing. Then 10 seconds. So no more secrets. All the encryptions, all the secrets, all the things that we build, AI compromise it on the human side. You showed some examples, and we face it on a daily basis. Very sophisticated fakes that make my family members to give passwords, to give things, but you don't need to use it because quantum will crack the passwords like this in the light speed. And this is only the two current technologies that we're dealing now. What will come next, and if something will come next, if we survive this current, this is the most startling, the most freeing things. And it keeps on going, and we still use facsimile. So yes, we still have attack surfaces back there, and we still need to tackle them. So it's more job opportunity for people like me and like you. But for all of us, it's a big concern. And it's not just government and people. There are the big players. Microsoft, Cisco, Google, Amazon, and they have other interests rather than only public safety and things like that. And we need, as democracy, mostly as democracy, to face that.
I'm going to ask you about the other interests, and I'm going to pull you in very quickly, Titikat, but I just wanted to probe this a little bit further, Yigal. We saw in the movie, and we know already that our phones, last year somebody very evocatively said that this is more powerful than a tank now, or even a nuclear bomb. We're literally walking around with a nuclear bomb in all our hands. And that data hackers could scramble GPS systems, they could get into our water systems, they could contaminate, they could break the spinal cords of all countries.
Don't give all the ideas.
Sorry?
Don't give all the ideas at once to the bad guys.
Right. Okay, but my question there is, why then is it not happening at some apocalyptic scale?
That's a fair question. Where is the September 11 of cyber? Well, there are many answers. My first answer is they don't need it. The bad guys. They can cause enough damage without boiling the frog to jump. By slowly, and my colleague here will elaborate, I think, on that, by slowly messing with the minds of democracies, their adversaries, us, slowly but surely causing chaos, inflaming disputes, inflaming everything, they get much higher, much better consequences, results for them, worse for us, than just, blowing airplanes from the air or things like that. That can be done by cyber. But rest assured, as we are dealing, especially Israel, with terror groups, we see that there's no boundaries. Eventually, a terror group, a non-restrained, even maybe not sponsored, state-sponsored organization will get the nuclear, or so to speak, nuclear, and they can do horrible things. As we go more digital, it's just attracting more and more bad guys to try to mess with it. And once it's completely digital, for example, trains are still handled by people. But I read that in Europe, they are turning, because of lack of workforce, they're turning it completely digital. So it's the disasters, unfortunately, are there, unless we prepare properly for that, and we still can do that.
So, Yigal, you said something about democracies and that democracies at the receiving end of psych wars. So I think that's a bit of a fig leaf, because it's not that America or Israel are not playing psych wars on others. So I just want to, earlier also I was saying we have to give up on the polite frameworks on all of this and look at it in a hard-eyed way. And also, I'll come back to the Israel's use of AI and data war, and, in the whole Gaza context as well. So I just want to park that for a bit. Before coming to him, could you share about that one incident you'd shared earlier, which really brings home, in some way, the terror of this, of what you and your sort of data warriors did to prove to democratic countries how fragile and vulnerable they are?
Well,
Of the many things you did, share one.
many cases. One of them, one historic moment was in 2007. Historic because that was still, the term cyber was not in use yet. And we gathered all the train company in Israel to a room, to control room, and show them how we can cross-connect two trains, only on the signaling, only virtually. But they went pale, understanding what can happen. 2007, I should say 2007 BC in cyber times. But that was the first example. Since then, it turned completely the entire Israeli approach to this problem. And you said incidents. Knock on wood, it's wood, right? Look, in Israel, I was 4 years Director General. And in these 4 years, I had only 3 incidents. None of them was critical infrastructure. The critical infrastructures are the most intimidated. We have a list, you know, electricity, watering. But I found in my 4 years that democracy became the most fragile, most critical infrastructure. I have a Guinness Book of Records of 4 elections in 2 years, by the way. We have a vivid democracy in Israel, too vivid democracy in Israel. So I need to protect 4 elections. And each time it got harder because not just us, the bad guys got improved. And we needed to find solutions. You didn't hear about any big catastrophe because that's our mission. But it's there, and incidents, hopefully I survived 4 years, but my hair is a little lesser than I used to have before that, and sleepless nights. It's constant fight, and the stakes are growing higher and higher.
I'll just share with the audience that, Yigal just said that he made 2 train systems, showed how easily they could make them crash. But he also actually, he and his warrior team penetrated the nuclear reactors of some democratic countries and showed that you could reach the nuclear button as well.
One example of that, yes. We helped a European country. I will not disclose because of many reasons. But they asked us to see if there's a possibility. Nuclear reactor, it took us less than a month working from outside, like real hackers, to show them that it's very feasible, very easy to make, let's say, 1/3 of Western Europe inhabitable for 100 years because of a meltdown. You can cause a meltdown from cyber attack. Since then, I believe, I hope, they've made some corrections, but it's something that can happen everywhere because the nuclear plants, power plants, energy, technology is a little obsolete. And because of budget issues and growing older technicians, it's not getting better. Hackers put their eyes on this. But I promise not to fear too much, so I'll stop.
I'm going to come back. Let me draw you in now, now that we've sufficiently laid out this apocalyptic landscape, that you then are a soldier against some of this, against some of the psych wars. So again, lay out for us, what has been your understanding of how democracies or elections or people's psyches are being subverted, and what tools have you developed to protect against this?
So it's really great to be here and listen to a lot of other speakers today. And I founded this organization called Double Think Lab, and it was a reference from George Orwell, 1984. Double think is describe that people's human mind can coexist 2 or multiple different contracted idea, and they can believe so much. That's where the propaganda and the disinformation can work. So one, people can believe that they are living in a democracy country, but in fact their government doesn't have any fair election or any election at all, but they can still believe that, right? Or people can believe that in order to save our freedom of expression, we need more media control. That's why people can accept those concepts. And So we start to looking at those problems in 2017 in Taiwan because we saw that a lot of different disinformation, especially originate outside of our country. And we first believe that this probably a media or social media platform technology problem. It still is. But then we realize more and more we do the research, we realize our adversary is using this as their war tactic. It's a gray zone tactic, what we call cognitive warfare. It's
cognitive warfare.
Yes, or psychological warfare. Their purpose is to build those propaganda and disinformation, and they polarize, divided their target country, and they try to influence the election, try to make people start not only we don't disagree, we used to be like disagree with other people with different political ideology. But right now, a lot of the country we are seeing is that people see other people vote for different people. They see them as an enemy. They start to have this like hate among the society, and that's rotten our democracy and our society.
But Titika, that may not even be psych war, we've already we've crossed that. Like he said, that's BC now, that social media companies have already done that, by locking us into an algorithm of our own liking. You're anyway in a kind of foolproof echo chamber, and that's polarized society so deeply. So all day when we've been discussing what AI or the biosciences or computational biology, all of it converging, I mean, it's crazy to think what's coming our way. But so what you're describing, it may not even be a coordinated psych war by China on Taiwan. So that could just be social media, But you were talking earlier about the fact that Taiwanese young people are now slowly becoming pro-mainland China, and that you have tracked that there are actual tools by which that is being done. So share that with the audience.
Well, Taiwanese young people, well, generally speaking, most of the Taiwanese still are very poor Taiwan's own identity, independent, or for the future. But because we've been threatened by mainland China, PRC, that if we go independent, they will attack us. So most of people choose to stay whatever the same situation right now. But the more and more Taiwan, not like India, we didn't manage to ban the TikTok. So more and more young people are in those apps and start to receive a lot of information from those apps. Sometimes they get the political related information. And that's slowly become a problem, is that because a lot of those narratives tell you not to think or nothing to believe. So fundamentally manipulate those information or propaganda that people start to receive. Sometimes they feel, okay, this is a fake, that is real. But ultimately, I believe in India society, you also have people asking this question, right? Like, what to believe is true or not, whether there's a real truth, right? Or it's all perspective. Right? People start to undermine the value of the truth, and that's and become to believe nothing, or believe that everything is just opinions. And I think that's the real problem, because that's what we start to see from our young generation.
I mean, that's actually really going to accentuate, because forget at a political level, when you see any image now, seeing is definitely not believing, So either you're going to buy into it, or you're going to have an era of disregard where, like you said, everybody is going to back off because you just don't know what's real or illusion anymore, But I'm going to come back to some of the ideas you raised. You were saying that there were tools that, say, China or any other country, and I don't want to make this distinction because I don't think any country is very pious. All countries are doing this. I think America, Israel, I'm sure Taiwan government is doing it as well. That you create bot armies, you are definitely pushing a propaganda. But from what Yigal is saying is that you don't even need these tools anymore. You were talking about two things. One, that quantum technologies is going to undo in like 1 second what is now going to take 10 trillion years to unscramble. So I want to get a sense of the timeline that you think this quantum computing is going to kick in. And number two is that you were saying it's not even important for you to have digital warriors or for governments or political parties to have bot armies, because young people by a swimming pool could be doing this. So talk to us about that.
Yes. Well, we are used for thousands of years that the best blacksmith is the older one. He has the older one, most experience. He has 10,000s of hours of blacksmithing. The same goes with the farmer, etc., etc. Until these days, in the last 3 decades, more or less, and its speed is growing. It's an upside-down pyramid of workforce. Our kids, the less experienced, and by the way, the most vulnerable from mind manipulation, are more savvy and more understanding the new world than the older and more experienced. I ran organization of hundreds of cyber warriors. I was the least experienced, the least tech savvy among them. The new guy that recruited yesterday knew more than me on specific things. I brought other benefits to the table, but it's a different tradecraft. And that goes for governments, for governance, for everything. It's the younger, they understand better how the battlefield, in this case, looks like and should look like than the old generals. And I consider myself 53 years old. That's dinosaur in digital life. So we need to find other solutions. First of all, to understand and realize how to harness the seemingly less experienced workforce and to put them into right, because we have great kids. They understand better. So we cannot patronize over them and say, no, you don't. They understand, but in different phases. We need to build another model of workforce, of organizations, of government. Second is using technology. And AI, I listen very carefully most of the day. And, well, in my tradecraft, we see always the shadows behind the light. This is the cyber is the dark side of digital transformation. And it's getting darker. So as we depend, and we have great things in AI, and the robot that started the day, I look at her, Sophia, and I look for the back door. And there's a back door in every technology, because it's done by people, and people do mistakes. Even, I'm not talking about purpose, like my colleague mentioned, the other country nearby. So yes, we need different new models, new paradigm of how to recruit people, how to work with them, and what to delegate to the AI, and what, God forbid, not to.
So we're still focusing on governments and large players, but are you saying that just someone young could actually scramble the railway system of a country or break into a bank? And even on financial warfare, it's a crazy statistic that every year $10 trillion is wiped off and sunk away by just young people, just below the radar. So,
the current pandemic, the third biggest economy in the world today is cybercrime. US, China, now cybercrime, more than $10 trillion. And nobody knows the real number because most of it is not disclosed. So why it's so lucrative? Why so many? Because it's the perfect crime. And by no means I don't recommend anyone to do that. It's illegal, it's unethical, but unfortunately,
and I've done all of it. Yeah.
No, I keep on ethical things. You sleep better for me. But why is that? Because the world today is still not fully fit, far from fully fit, to the current digital age. For example, all the police, all the law enforcement, they are gathered in the Interpol. Interpol is very strong, very efficient, by the way, in moving and delegating intelligence and data. They know nothing, excuse me, they say, nothing about cybercrime. They know how to, bank robberies and things like that. Now, the cyber agencies work very closely together. India, Israel, all more and more cyber agencies, but they are not law enforcement. They don't apprehend, they don't put on trial, they don't do this enforcement thing. They are just like CDC, controlled disease centers. So two parallel universes. One is very law enforcement, strong, efficient. The other is cyber savvy, and they are parallel universe. They do not connect. Why not building a task force? Today, the White House is trying to do that with the counter-ransomware initiatives, the CRI. 4 years, Israel, India are part of it, 70 countries, talking, no actions. So it's the perfect crime. You don't need to do the felony from here. I believe most of the attacks over India comes from elsewhere. China, Russia. The same goes with Israel. By the way, we have, unfortunately, many Israeli criminals. They don't do anything in Israel. Why to get in trouble with the local police? They do it in non-extradition countries. With Israel, we have many of them. So this is how the world works. Only if the world gathers, unite, work together, and that's, by the way, this is the motto of everything we do in cyber. You cannot win the cyber, the digital security by yourself. Not a single company, not a single agency, and not a single country as big as India or the US or Israel. You need to work together because of how the internet works, how the digital cybercrime even works. But the good news, the good guys are much more tend to work together than the bad guys. They're competing. On our side, it's much easier for Taiwan and Israel and India to join forces and work together because everyone suffers from that and everyone understands already there's a problem. So I'm optimistic we'll get there, but it still needs some energy to make it happen.
So, Yigal, just because I'm uncomfortable as a journalist, living with very easy binaries of good and evil, so each time I'm pushing back. I'm not entering into the politics of the Gaza war and Israel's action there, but I don't want to sit here on stage and come to such easy conclusions about, who are the good guys and bad guys, because that's a real perspective issue, so I'm just pushing back on that because we can't open up a discussion now about deeper political questions. I'm trying to stick with the cyber war one. So again there, and I want to draw you in here that, are there any tools? We are going on describing, and all through the day we've heard a kind of inevitability towards where we are moving. So is it only that because people don't need to, they're like he said, they're keeping the level of crime just below radar? But is there any way to fight back? So have you, who's been so involved in the fight back, have you found any tools to fight back?
It's different. It's like a whole of a society approach and for multiple different stakeholders. So of course you do a lot of education or open source intelligence report to show people the pattern. And also more and more we see the countries are also working together to show bigger pictures to governments and understand what's the tactic or the chain that they are using. So EU is pushing this FIMI framework, foreign information manipulation and interference, and they use this kind of like a cybersecurity field as called kill chain disarm framework. So their idea is that if every country, they can start to recording the foreign information operation incidents by what's the tactic, what's the tool, what's the technology, strategies they are using in different phases, then we can have this bigger picture understanding that maybe this type of attack is all come from the same adversary, and they have the different way to find a policy to stop it. I give you one example. So we've been seeing a lot of this like a new tactic. It's not super high tech. It's just paying the influencers, right? So they have this like a TikToker, small influencer or influencer wannabe. They are they talk about like a shampoo or a stylish. Someday they suddenly talk about elections, or in our case, they talk about India. Our government is going to import a lot of Indian migrant workers to Taiwan. And then they say something very racist and a very extreme narrative. Then If you just one user, you saw this video, you found maybe this is have a good point, right? But what you didn't know is that there's maybe hundreds other TikTokers are saying exactly the same script, even where to pause, where to insert the same materials. And when you show this pattern or show this greater picture to people, normal users, they start to understand that this is something somebody is behind those messages. Manipulated, and even more, somebody is paying those people, and who have the interest and also have the resource to pay in that, and why it's legal, right? So this is our older question, and we are working on finding the right policy tools to stop all these activities.
But you know, Titikat, in hearing, I really feel this is all a BC conversation because we started the morning and the day with talking about how Sam Altman has come up with the orb to, you know, it's a new biometric for the world to determine whether you're human or you're a machine, you know. And so we're no longer really going to need people. I know just, say, 2 or 3 years back, governments were paying armies of young people, bots, you know, like human bots, to do this kind of orchestrated, choreographed psych war. But increasingly, you're not going to need that. You know, it's going to be very diffused AI that's doing it. So I'm really not sure whether this discussion is even pertinent to today. You know, I think it's a BC conversation. And that brings me to you, Yigal, to say all day we've been discussing whether, you know, the technology exists outside of us or whether it is something that you can actually engineer to your own purposes. So if you're saying that countries, the democratic countries, are coming together on some of these common, you know, problems, it's quite easy to turn back the clock on these algorithms, you know. If governments really decided that social media companies cannot design an algorithm to constantly reinforce and lock you into a world of your own liking and push content to you in that way, it's really quite easy to turn back that algorithm. I'm asking you.
Well, counting on human beings is very sensitive, is very dangerous. we don't have any other choice. We are inventing the technology. We are coming with the new ideas. We, people. But we are digging on our own graves by doing that. And the equilibrium that is still missing, the working point of where technology and economy, commercial players, Google, Amazon, and others, and governments, where exactly is the working point? We're still far from it. We're still away from the right point that we can rest assured, and I suspect we'll never get to a specific point. It will be always a pendulum, a movement, that we want to make sure it's not go to extreme. It's not tearing and flying away. It's to how to control it, like in a nuclear power plant, how to make the uranium hot enough to boil the water, but not to explode and make it steam and radioactive, like Chernobyl.
But Yigal, I think that's, you kind of sidestep the question. You know, the thing I'm asking is, we've been struggling with the whole dilemma, the promise and peril of AI, because they're genuine, like Pushmeet was here, and there's so much to be gained out of AlphaFold that it's hard to turn your back on that technology. But this particular thing you're talking about, which is, you know, data silos in which we're all living, what is the advantage, except pecuniary and financial advantage to certain companies, which is the attention economy? I don't see any sort of democratic good coming out of algorithms that are forcing us all into our little hermetically sealed worlds. So why aren't you addressing the root of it?
Look, asking me about the advantages and the good things from technology, it's the wrong address. I'm looking,
you only use it for bad uses.
As a counter the dangers, how to encounter the dangers coming from these technologies. And talking about AI, wow. Look, I've done the first presentation on AI in cyber back in 2018. Not BC, but not far from this. I was in office and I showed examples from 2017 of the early uses of AI in cyber. And after 2 presentations, people were glazing at me like this, so I stopped until 2023. Then, after ChatGPT, it became popular and everybody understand. Now I do. But in these 4 or 5 years, the abuse, technology runs both sides. The abuse of AI in cyber, it's very good for defense. It minimizes and close gaps very fast that people do. On the other side, also for the hackers, also for the bad guys. If it takes me years to find the breaches, now it takes very fast. But it still imitates human behavior. So wherever we see a human thing, AI can do it faster, easier, cheaper, and so on. But there's another field, more interesting, less spoken of, which is adversarial AI. Again, I'm talking about the dark side of it. Adversarial AI is maybe what's gonna endanger mankind and humanity in the coming years, because it's AI against AI. Today, it's handled by people, I hope, maybe in some labs. We already heard about, the bots, AI bots that began to speak with each other with their invented language. Nobody else understands. So we heard in the news that they shut it down. Did they? Okay, let's hope. I can assure that people in any time in history, I'm a historian, I'm not a techie guy. I have a degree in history. People do the same mistakes. We play with fire technology. Oh, it's nice. Let's try now to burn cities, Rome. Now, the same is happening with AI. And the problem is it's much bigger, much stronger, much more dangerous, and much more people with, let's say, more suspicious intentions are playing with it. So when I'm looking at it, I see dark side and shadows. But again, adversarial AI, bear in mind, you can fool, you can poison databases, you can fool the models too easy. It happens in labs all the time. It's less getting attention because it's less sexy but it's very dangerous, and we face that as we speak.
Gosh, we could go on about this because as you were talking, my mind was going to other things, which is just the materials war, because you're talking, about what China or Russia or America or India or anybody could do to each other, but also the raw material of this technology is completely controlled by some countries, So for China has complete control over, say, lithium or cobalt or, so there's also a raw materials war going on beneath this. So all of it is very, very, very disturbing. I asked you a question earlier that this is already bad enough, but how far away is the quantum revolution? As I was saying earlier this morning, the robotic revolution that everyone is saying now is round the corner. 6 months ago, it seemed far away. Now it's round the corner. Quantum, we were talking to one of our speakers, Raj Shah, who's going to be coming tomorrow, and he said, oh, quantum, it's okay, it's still 4 years away. And, we were just shocked. We said 4 years seems like a dismissive timeline for you. Yeah, it's tomorrow. But he was saying, oh, that's not an immediate worry. It's 4 years away. Do you agree?
I suspect we're a year too late. There are many, many indicators showing that in China, they already reached the point, what we call the Q day. Q day, the quantum day, is the singular point where the quantum computing power will be strong enough to break all the codes, all the current popular encryptions, RSA and others. There are indications that show that they are already past that. They have all the interest to keep it quiet, as we understand. But even if they haven't reached there, there's a consensus that 4,000 qubits, the power of a quantum computer is with qubits. Already 1,200 is operational. Microsoft just declared something. Just watch the quantum companies in the US NASDAQ, their shares. After 900 or 1,000% rise in 2024, it got a little down and now it's up again. So it shows something, not just expectations by investors, but something happening there. And the D-Wave, for example, they published a lot of their clients. Suddenly, most of the clients were vanished, removed, US government. So something is happening in China for sure, maybe in the other side as well, that is hidden from the public. And my guess is that either they reached the 4,000 qubits already, or they found that you can do that with other annealing quantum technologies. You can do that with less qubits to reach the same, but it's here. It's not 4 years.
Wow. I mean, we started the morning with one danger. You've taken code red up way above, into many notches above. I just want to end this with, one thought that, and I'm coming back to the Israel-Gaza situation, because in a way it's that kind of melting pot where we can see what happens to the psyche of even human beings when you can use AI, and you know that you use Lavender, you use Where's Daddy, and I've asked, Ephraim Halevi was talking to us last year at Synapse, and I said, are there even any studies happening on what happens to the human psyche when you can have an AI program, when you can press buttons, you can eviscerate people, you can pick people out with the AI program. We've been talking about what it means to be human. I think that's something to think about, and that's why I'm not going into the genesis and the rights and wrongs of the historic battle, but this technology and human beings interface that's happening, it's deeply worrying. So,
well, I can only say that the current war shows that you cannot rely only on digital power, on technology. That was the big hit that Israel got in October 7th, that we relied too much, and that's a lesson for all the world. We relied too much on our undoubted power, upper hand in technology, and forgot the basics. And we're still flesh and blood. We're still bound to do horrible mistake in intelligence interpretation. With all the intelligence indicators and collectors and sources, and I grew up in the intelligence community, the same mistakes, that's maybe a good news. As long as the AI haven't replaced us, and we're still flesh and blood, we are the same, learn history, we're the same people, and we need to make sure that technology, first of all, is not overthrowing us, but also is not blinding us.
yeah.
And as you mentioned with the manipulation, yes, we have the ultimate weapon. We just don't realize that digital is the ultimate weapon. Because it's not just killing people, it can kill people. It's killing their minds, free minds. It's the free choice. That's much more dangerous than killing it.
Yeah. Right now I was having an Anil Seth moment because I was talking about Where's Daddy and Lavender in a different context. And you just sidestepped that and turned it into something else, consciously, I'm sure. But I want to point that out, that I wasn't blind to it. But, when you said about this thing about humans and technology, I think I'd like you to just end with a kind of on this danger zone of reds. Where do you place us at where we currently are? On a scale of 10, what is the red, what is the danger mark we are already at?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, we are very close to midnight. There's the nuclear clock. In digital, we are getting there because of quantum, because of AI, because of the even vulnerabilities. And mainly because of the cyber influence campaigns. That's the most dangerous because it plays with our basic choice, free choice. And that's horrible, and it's very effective. You see it, undermining people's trust is the main goal. After you undermine people's trust in democracies, you can turn it to many, many ways. All of them are bad. Extreme religious, extreme something, because people are afraid. terror. It's a psychological term. Israel is terrorized, basically psychologically. People are afraid to do things, afraid to choose freely. So we see that not just in Israel. Ukraine suffer from it, and I'm afraid that all the world is going there because the bad guys feel free, feel they have the upper hand, and they get away with it. I hope in this current term in the US and joining forces more and more, we can push back. Yes, we have not just the moral upper hand or the ethical, we have the technology. We have better technology. We just need to work together and to force them back, and then we'll come from red to orange. We have other fears from technology itself, but the main fear is by bad guys abusing it. And this is very dark red.
You want to end on a hope note? Or if you have none, then you can join him in the shadows.
Yeah, so I think it's all kind of similar that, but one thing is different is that the information operation or this cognitive warfare, not like a cyber or hacker, they want to hidden their chase. One good thing is that you can actually see what they're saying and what's their behavior online because that's their purpose. And I think that right now we are with this like a generative AI, it's more or deepfake or a lot of it is like a generative things. People start to get more fear that how our public disclosure will be polluted by those things. But even those adversary, even they use the real photo or real video, they can still tell a lie. They can still, I know a lot of people try to figure out whether there's a deepfake or that's written by bots, but even that's written by human or the real photo or video, it could be also telling lies to other people. So I think we need to understand more about how those algorithms actually work. You know, when you log into X or Twitter or Facebook, you basically log into other people's computer where they can manipulate only how many like or how many view you got. It's kind of like, lucky you've been a TikTok, but otherwise it's kind of like you put your own country's public debate in your enemy's countries where they can decide this speaker only get to talk 2 minutes or their microphone can be heard by 5 people. And another people can get like 200,000 followers just in a second, right? So all this is come to the end is like, no matter how those technology advance, they will never stop to trying to use this technology to manipulate the people's mind because it's easy, it's cheap, and also because fundamentally they believe human being is very easy to manipulate. And I think that's come to us as a democracy country to prove them wrong.
Well, thank you very much, Titi Kat and Yigal. This is a somber note to end on. We're going to continue tomorrow to delve into these issues. I just wanted to, again, in an even more sobering way, recall that when Snowden exposed what America was doing in terms of listening in on its own citizens, or Pegasus was used in India, I just want to keep dissolving this easy, they're the bad guys, we're the good guys, because I think the technology and the way it's being deployed is very deeply powerful. It's going to change our destiny as a species, and I don't think we can hide behind the fig leaf of merely fighting the good guys and bad guys, I feel like bringing Paolo Benanti back on stage to ask what is the moral framework for this new nation of non-human, intelligent people that we are creating. So on that note, we'll meet again tomorrow. There's dinner outside in the lawn and a concert, wonderful Kabir's Cafe, reminding us of what still is human and soaring about, being just biological human beings. So please do join us for drinks and dinner. And thank you very much for this very, very engrossing day.
Thank you for having me.